Hi there, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm excited. I've been waiting for this interview since yesterday. Dr. Lisa Mosconi is going to be joining me to talk about her first in history study to measure estrogen activity in the human brain. It is remarkable. We've been talking behind the scenes, like back and forth on text. I actually had this date in my calendar yesterday when the study was released. And you've seen Dr. Mosconi on here before because she wrote the book, The Menopause Brain, New York Times bestseller. So I have a link to that too if you want to check it out. But let me grab her and put her in so we can talk. And right, and I know she is traveling right now, so I don't know. Let's see. Here we go. Accept. Hi there. How are you?
Morning. Good morning. How are you?
It's so good to see you.
So good to see you. With
Well, so
sunshine.
I know. I'm so excited because I had this in my calendar actually, the 20th. I knew that this, we talked about this when I was in Spain when you texted me, and I was so excited to see this happening.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about it yesterday here, but I'm excited to hear it from you in terms of what all this means. I mean, this is a big deal.
I would say so. It's certainly a big deal for neuroscience, but I think it's also a big deal for women's health because if it bridges the gap between neuroscience, women's health, neurology, radiology, really at the intersection of all these different disciplines. And I think we're feeling.
Let me see. I think we froze a little bit, but we'll get her back. Let's see where we are. Because I can't talk about those things. I don't know. Let's see where she is. Hold on one second, guys. How are you? Hi, New York. How are you? There we go. Let me pull her back in here. I know she is doing a ton of stuff and been talking to a ton of people about what's going on. So we have a little connection problem.
I don't know what happened.
There you go. It's okay. I said, I can't tell you anything that she's talking about because I don't know.
Well, yeah, understandably. I was like, wait, what's going on? So we did this imaging study because, as you know, I've been working in menopause. I've been studying women's brains pretty much for 20 years. I specialize in women's brain health. And we were studying menopause and how strong an impact menopause can have on women's brains, with the brain fog, especially the mood change, and not just the hot flashes, but more of a systemic number of things that can change inside the brain. And that was in 2017 where we published the first study showing brain changes before and after the menopause transition. Right. But those were more like gray matter volume and connectivity and brain energy levels and blood flow, which is wonderful. But my question was, well, why? What is it exactly about menopause that's triggering these changes? And basic scientists would say, well, it's estrogen, because estrogen is the master regulator of women's brain health. So as we lose estrogen, specifically estradiol, a lot of things can go awry, because estradiol is incredibly important for neuroprotection, for neuroplasticity, for brain energy levels, for blood flow, for immunity, for it's an antioxidant. It's fantastic. And they said, well, I mean, can we actually see that? Can I measure estrogen in the brain? And can I make sure that it's really what's driving all the other changes and the symptoms and whatnot? And that was in 2019 when I went to my radiochemistry department. And I said to them, I need a tracer for brain estrogen. And the chief of radiochemistry back then said to me, we don't have it. I said, well, that's unexpected, because at medicine, we have one of the best radiochemistry departments in the United States, perhaps in the world. Mm-hmm. We work with Memorial Sloan Kettering. You know, we know what we're doing.
You have a few things going on, Lisa.
Right. It was one reason I work at Cornell, because of radiochemistry. And so I said, well, is it just us?
Right.
Or do we not have it? And he said to me, we just don't have it. We have tracers for estrogen receptors from the neck down. So we can do imaging of breast cancer,
Right.
but there's no technique that allows us to measure estrogen inside the brain. And we can talk about why it's difficult to do that, but the bottom line is that it's really difficult to do that.
Right.
Right. And so it's
I like when you simplify it for me, Lisa. I want to understand it super clear. So it is difficult to do that because it's never been done until now.
it's not, well, it's just very hard to get stuff inside the brain.
Sure.
It's really, really difficult, especially things that can give you a signal back. There's
Okay.
a number of boxes that you have to check
Okay.
that are very difficult to come out. It's not like people have never tried.
Right.
You know, people have
Right.
tried this. It was just honestly
Hard
difficult.
to do.
And so I said, well, you know, this is unacceptable because women, over 164 million American women are taking hormone therapies, whether it's birth control or hormone for menopause or endocrine therapy for cancer. So many women are being put on hormones or are taking hormones, and we have no idea what these hormones are actually doing inside their brain. Besides the fact that we also want to know what happens in the brain as estrogen levels change throughout a woman's lifespan, right? From puberty all the way to menopause and beyond. As I said, we need to make this tracer. And we started working on it in 2019, and we were able to make the tracer I wanted. 2020, we got FDA approval.
Wow.
21, we got shut down for COVID, so we lost almost a year. The productivity, Billy and Kevin just walked in the door.
Hi.
And then we started scanning, and we started doing imaging. And what happened is that I was super nervous because really, it had never been done before. I had no idea, will I get a signal? Is it going to be a good tracer?
Right.
Is it not? So there's a lot of my friends in this study.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow.
Who volunteered at the very beginning.
Right.
And that's how we learned that the tracer was working, thank goodness, as well as we were hoping. Because there's always a chance that you have a tracer, it gets inside the brain, but then you don't get enough. It would not be harmful to anyone.
Right, of course.
Or like maybe just don't get enough of a signal, or maybe the data isn't as good. And instead, the images were quite beautiful. So I felt a lot better. And now fast forward to today, we have an actual publication, and it's the first time the scientists have succeeded in getting a tracer in the brain and being able to get a measurable signal back, and also answer a lot of questions, I think,
right,
as related to menopause, especially.
What do we understand? Because, you know, it's funny. When we first started talking, I don't know that the conversation of menopause had become a dinner party conversation, and now I feel like, right, a lot of people are talking about it. But I love that, and I love the fact that we're finally bit by bit normalizing it all. What does this tell you about women that are in perimenopause or menopause? And what I did do is I pulled up the image that you have. Is that okay if I show it?
Oh, please.
So this is, right? This
Yeah.
is yours. And you know, this shows the you know, the two different brains here, right?
Yes.
And what you've shown all along in the menopause brain book and in your recent studies. But what does this study show us now for women in menopause?
This study is showing something really interesting. And let me tell you, it goes against the theories that we had until yesterday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So when we started looking at estrogen in the brain, what we were expecting was a downfall in a way. So the way the estrogen works is like a key that needs to open a lock, or it's like information that has to be read by something. And the reader is called the receptor. So women's brains are full of estrogen receptors that are not always there. So it's not like it's part of the brain. These receptors have to be made by the brain every single day, almost, and perhaps every week, but continuously. The brain has to decide whether or not it needs these receptors. And what preclinical scientists have found in mice and rodents was that the receptors at some point were just not showing up anymore. Soon after menopause. That's in mice. Women are not
Right.
mice, right?
Right.
Mice die
Yep.
soon after the end of their
Yep.
reproductive span. They go through menopause in a way different from women. So the question was, well, are we going to see the same thing in women? Because this is one reason that, at least in neurology, we don't think about hormone therapy as something that could work long term.
Right.
The idea is that at some point the brain is just not making this response anymore, so it doesn't want the estrogen anymore. More or less 5-6 years after the final period. Well, it turns out, surprise, that that is not the case for women. At least in our study, and of course it needs to be replicated, is the first, but we have a very consistent signal showing that estrogen receptors are actually more abundant. We have more estrogen receptors in the brain starting in perimenopause,
Okay.
and even more so after the final menstrual period, 14 years after the final menstrual period.
Were you really surprised by that?
Yes. I
What is it?
mistake. I told students, I was like, you're looking at the data backward. Are we looking at decline or
Right.
increase? And they're like, no, these are increases. Just no matter how I slice it,
It's the same result.
the density of estrogen receptors is increasing. It was like, no. We're going to enroll more women. We're going to have a larger database. Yeah, but it is extremely consistent to the point that if you measure this estrogen receptor density in the brain, how many you have per unit measurement, we are able to separate postmenopausal women from premenopausal women with 100%, like complete separation.
Wow.
Yeah.
By just looking at that.
Yeah.
But,
And it just, yeah, you can tell. You just look at the image and say, okay, this is postmenopausal, this is postmenopausal, this woman has a menstrual cycle. Because it's so, you can just by eyeballing scans, you can kind of see that. Not always, but especially medically, when you measure it, with data, with numbers, then you can really have 100% separation.
So what does this show us for why? I mean, so then my thought is like, okay, we talk about all the things that happen in menopause. We have the brain fog, forgetfulness. We feel a little foggy. Does all that explain this now, or no? Or does it make it more confusing?
No, it does. It actually explains it, which is the other thing that I was like, wow, when we found it. Because when you do a blood test, so many women will come to us and say, I have brain fog, I don't feel good, I can't remember anything. Focus. Should I do a blood test? And where I was like, they're not useful because they fluctuate so widely and the range is so wide that it's very unusual to have an abnormal test, if you will, age. And they just don't predict symptoms. They don't predict knowledge, they don't correlate with anything.
No.
Usually. With the brain estrogen receptor response, with the estrogen signal in the brain, we can actually predict women who have the brain fog and also mood changes, and as compared to women who do not. So for every unit increase in estrogen receptor density, a person is 10 times more likely to suffer from brain fog.
Wow.
Yes. And
so we are correct with what we're feeling. There's a reason for what we're feeling, and now we've got a way to really be studying this going forward. I mean, this is a groundbreaking study, so this is the first, right?
It's the first, yeah.
And now talk about where you've published it, because I know you published it because you really wanted it to be accessible to people. And I think that's so important because I know there's a lot. I went down to look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to have her explain this to me. But I think it's really important that people can read this and look at it and understand it for themselves too.
Yes. So, well, we went for a high impact journal. I was really hoping that the paper would be published in a Nature journal because it's a guarantee of quality, for anyone who reads it. I think you immediately know that a lot of work went into that study. And the journal that the paper is published in is called Scientific Reports, which is is the 5th most cited journal in the world. And I really like that is open access. I mean, we have to pay to make it open access, but now the paper is free to download for anyone who wants to have a copy. And actually, the more people download, even if you don't read it, just the fact that people click on it and download it, it's really important to us scientists. It signals editors that this is something people are really interested in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know what? So I've been publishing for over 20 years. I never had a problem getting published until I started working in menopause. I remember basically my first rejection was when I was trying to publish something about menopause, and I was told this is not of interest to the journal. And I was like, how is that possible? I mean, all women go through menopause, we're half of the population, but somehow it's not a priority for many scientific journals, especially brain journals. So the fact that we were published is a big deal.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I think
doesn't that say everything, Lisa, that you had a problem getting published with? I mean, doesn't that say everything to where we are today? I mean, you're talking about 20 years ago. I mean, that's how long you've been doing this, but it's amazing. Everyone's asking where to download. So
just for context, it's not like I can't publish.
I know, but I'm just saying, like,
publications, like I publish a lot.
Yeah, I know.
It's shocking to me that I was like, excuse me, did you just reject? Why? What? Why?
Wait, I want to show people where to find this because they're all asking.
Thank you.
So can you walk us through it? So here's where you're going to download the PDF and the study, right?
Yes.
And if you put your name in here, if you put in nature.com, and I'll also put the link up, everybody, but and they can download the PDF so they can see it for themselves. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. And
all right, perfect.
So I have the link in my bio.
Okay, I'll make sure that we put that on there too.
Yeah. Do you have the link? Did I send it to you?
I do. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to show on my computer too. So I put it up yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'll make sure everybody has the link, and we'll link over to Lisa's Instagram too, because if you're not following Lisa, you should follow her there. And then all the information about other studies and books and everything. So if people are just coming in and listening, just one kind of summary of this groundbreaking study, just so people understand what it is and what we're talking about that they're going to go download.
So this is the first ever brain imaging to measure hormonal activity in the brain. So no other hormone, no other study was able to measure hormones really inside the brain. We focused on estrogen because estrogen is really important for women's brains, and we had a lot of previously published studies showing that it's really important to measure this hormone. And what we found is that the way that the brain responds to estrogen is quite unique, perhaps to women, or appears to be quite unique, in that also, so starting before menopause, during perimenopause, and all the way up until age 65, the brain is actually very sensitive to the presence of estrogen. It's like our brains are a little bit starved for estrogen. Yeah. They're hungry, which is
they want more,
right? It's kind of hungry for estrogen, because what happens between the hormone and the estrogen receptors is that they need to be in a balance. So if you have a stable concentration of estrogen, then the brain only makes any receptors. If you have a lot of estrogen, that the brain needs to make fewer receptors, yeah, because there's a lot of estrogen in circulation. But once estrogen starts going down, what we found is that instead of shutting down and say, okay, that's it, I'm not even trying, the brain is actively mounting a response, perhaps compensatory, we don't know, or at least it is definitely trying to catch every last available bit of estrogen. And wow, I think important also in terms of estrogen therapy, perhaps, because it suggests that the brain wants estrogen. So there are different interpretations and different reactions to the social media. My reaction was, I now need to do a clinical trial. I need to find out if estrogen therapy, introducing hormones in the brain, will bring down the estrogen receptor signal, improve memory and cognitive function, right? That's right. What I was after. But I read a lot of comments from women saying, well, it looks like the brain is adjusting, adapting, just compensating, because there's still a little bit of estrogen being made. So this is a compensatory elevation. That's not my interpretation, because the elevation actually correlates with poor memory performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think my next steps is to see what happens with therapy. Can we make it better? Can we bring the memory back up? Can we provide relief? And if that doesn't work, then we'll try something else.
Lisa, if people want to be part of any of the
Oh,
studies,
yes.
can they? Because I see a lot of the comments here saying, "How can I be part of the study?" I know we talked about this before. Is it that original link that we talked about a few months ago, or
Yes, so that would be,
is it on your page?
yes, it's on my
Okay.
website,
Okay.
and it's on my Instagram as well. It would be best, but we are the Women's Brain Initiative, so it's
Mhm.
WBI
Yep.
dash research
Yep.
at med, as in medicine, .nl.edu. Maybe I
Yep.
can write it in the
Yes. And
like
if you want to write it in here, and then I'll do it separately because I think I still have that. And then just so everybody knows, Lisa is part of the
I was
documentary
going
in October.
back
So I was just thinking, like, where are
October.
we going to see her again?
Yeah, October
Is
17th.
October 18th on World Menopause Day is when it premieres on PBS. So all of this behind the scenes and a lot of this explanation beyond, beyond everything is going to be a huge part. Like there's a huge part of the documentary that's brain, starring
Amazing.
Dr. Lisa Mosconi. But anyway, so we'll make sure that people have the information though for where to email to be part of studies or trials, the downloadable for the PDF, and to make sure, does this help you get more funding down the line and more ability for people to pay attention to menopause? A study like this, does
Yeah,
that help make that happen?
I'm hoping for sure. Something that's been really helpful to us has been visibility outside of,
Yeah,
because something that's very hard to do in clinical research, one of the major obstacles is to find individuals who are interested in participating in the research.
yeah,
I remember when I was not doing menopause or specifically women's brains, maybe
yeah,
enrollment. And now instead, there are so many people, so many women who will reach out and say, hey, can I be in your study? So then I can go back to sponsoring agency
right.
and say,
I see.
I have a wait list, let's renew the grant to make the
Yes.
list. Because this is a very special and unique
Yeah.
population of women really, really determined to support the research and get information,
Yep.
and also people care. So I think it's really, funding agencies is taxpayer money. So
Mm-hmm.
because is a priority for us taxpayers, they should
Yes.
hear about it. And this is the
Yes.
way they hear about it. It's from the media, it's from papers being published and being downloaded and being shared, because they know they track.
Sure. Well, we're going to keep sharing and we're going to make sure that we share
Yeah.
as much as we can. You know that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's so good to see you. Thank you so much. I know you're so busy with everything, but I wanted to just make sure. So do you want to type that in here, Lisa? Do you want to do that or do you want me to do it?
Can I do it? Are you going to share this? Maybe
I'm going to keep this up here and then yeah, let's do that when I share. I'll share and
all the information. What do you think?
perfect. Let's do it that way. That's a brilliant.
Oh,
Thank
it's so good
you.
to see you. Where are you? Are you in New York?
I'm in New York.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm in New York. It's like we're in a heat wave right now. Where are you? Well, I know where you are.
I'm in Aspen, in Colorado.
Yes.
There's the Aspen Health
Yeah.
Ideas. And then
How is it?
tomorrow, I'm speaking tomorrow, we're announcing the study.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Okay, great. Great.
very excited. They show the images. They don't really do screens and visuals. I was like, please, it's so much better. So they're very excited. All right.
Are they going to do it?
Yes, you're going to
Oh,
do
yes.
it.
We have to have visuals. That was the first thing I ever remembered the first time I saw you speak. I was like, I can't get those brains out of my head. I just couldn't.
It's so
It's
obvious. Right.
so obvious. It's
To
so
talk
obvious.
an hour, or I can just show you an
Yes.
image and it's just like, oh, yeah.
And it really resonates and you don't forget it. And so then you understand and you feel validated. And that's a big deal.
You know, the most important thing for me about this research that we're doing and this study that we're done is that we're really validating what women have been saying for centuries. And people just don't believe what women say. And I find it so frustrating and aggravating. I was talking about this study yesterday at dinner. We had a dinner. You know who was there at dinner?
Who was there?
I never girl. I don't usually have celebrity crushes and stuff like that. Oh my God, Dr. Jennifer Doudna. She's a Nobel Prize in chemistry. She invented.
Amazing.
She was right next to me, and
You're so cute.
oh.
I love you.
But
Lisa, people are fangirling you.
oh, that is so
True.
that is so sweet. But
it's
so
true.
I was telling everybody about this study because I was so excited, and then the secretary of the HHS was right across the table, and she looks at me and said, "Let me clarify this. This is 2024. Are you telling me this is really the first time that people have been able to measure any hormones in a person's brain?" And I was like, "Well, I can only speak for estrogen, but the answer is yes."
It's stunning.
It's
But you know what you were talking about with validating, that's the thing. Like when we have these conversations and like we pull out and have the larger conversations, right? And women feel like they're alone with so much because they've not heard about it from most places. And then they don't really know what to do about it, and they feel like there's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And I think that these validate and make you go, wait a minute, it's not something wrong. It's something that's factual and science backed and science based, and I'm not alone, and there's going to be solutions out there for it.
I know, and it's so sad.
I know.
Really.
I know.
It's such a big part of the population and such an important part of the population, and we're always helping everyone.
Yeah.
And for once that we could use a little help, there's no support. There's no support system in place.
I call everybody part of the Menopause. I'm like, this is our Menopause, and we're making it bigger and bigger. There's going to be the billion women that are going to be in menopause by next year. So that's the Menopause now.
Yes.
It's not.
And it's a force. We're a force. And once women decide that they've had enough,
yeah,
that's really when big changes are going to happen. The right type of research that is not biased, that is not aimed at finding pitfalls with menopause. It is not aimed at saying that menopause is a disease that needs to be cured, but rather looks at this state of life as something that does happen. Something that is expected to happen happens.
Yeah. And you can reclaim your health. You can really. I just feel like it's this. I don't know. It's a special time. Like I think it's a special time.
While not discounting the symptoms, right? I think there's no need to fear menopause, but if you're not feeling well, if you're having symptoms, if you're having a hard time,
you have to get through them.
Risks. Then there has to be a support system that looks at physiology, that looks at behavior, that looks at lifestyle, like an integrated approach.
It has to be. It has to be. Somebody's writing like the zero support, and that is the truth. I think there's a lot of women that feel like there's not that support. I want to ask you one more question before you go, if that's okay. There's so many people that are asking a lot of different questions. First, one, yes, this is going to be saved. Lisa and I will collaborate on it and make sure that it's everywhere. Two, you're asking about research. Being a part of her studies.
Yeah.
We'll put that up there. We'll put the downloadable for the PDF. And I know there's a lot of questions, so I wanna say this to you. Lisa's book, The Menopause Brain, is a brilliant, life-changing book, and we'll make sure that we link to that too, because I think that I just personally love that, and I love that you have an integrative approach to it, because that's how I feel. It has to go beyond. It has to go beyond. It's all parts of our lives that are touched by this.
Yes, I completely agree with you, and I think it's important to know what all your options are, right? And then just works for you based on your own preferences and risk tolerance and your own specific needs. So know that there is no right or wrong.
Yes,
but you do need to listen to your doctor.
Yes,
doctors do have experience, even though maybe a little bit, they won't talk to you for an hour and a half, but they know most doctors Most menopause specialists is that way.
Right.
So that's important. And I would say just stay away from things that are not scientific. It's also really important because now that menopause is having a little bit of a
I
moment,
know.
there's a lot of
Yes.
people who are just, oh, maybe I can
Yes.
provide support and some help. And obviously they're well intentioned, but not everybody knows a lot about menopause.
Yes.
So let's be cautious as well. There are
That,
things that are approved, there are things that make sense, and then there are things that maybe are just not worth your time or your money.
yes, there's nothing magical.
Yeah.
So, yes. Well, your
But
studies are very magical to me because I think you come up with things that are just so important. They need more studies, and I'm hopeful that this moves that ball forward to allow you to, get the money you need, the people to sign up. I can't wait till there are waiting lists and waiting lists of people that want to be part of this. So that really, because there are so many of us that get so much help, and you explain it so well too. Okay, thank you for being so generous with your time, Lisa. It's always so good to see you. I adore you. Good luck with everything tomorrow, and I will be sending good thoughts your way.
thank you
All
so
right,
much.
I'll share this now.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.